Yes, this is being recorded as per our normal procedure, and that is the warning to you. Our full partnership meetings have been derived as a way of keeping all of our partners updated on all of our activities, both internal and external. And what we've tried to do, as Laura and Tom as our support staff, and Tony and Tim as my co-chairs, is listen to your feedback, your constant feedback on what would be of value for you to participate in these meetings and to participate in our activities and projects. And then secondly, we want to provide an opportunity for increased networking for everyone involved in the CRC. So that means we want to have timely presentations by experienced presenters who will talk about the national, regional, state, and local levels, especially in terms of legislation, programs and activities that are ongoing, and funding sources. And I think today's program represents that type of a agenda that meets your needs. We're very thrilled that our own committees are going to provide updates today, and I think you're going to find them very meaningful. And also, our partners are stepping up, and in response to Laura and Tom, have agreed to make brief presentations on their initiatives, their activities, and their progress. I want to thank Nick Angarone for joining us today. He's been a constant on these leadership committee meetings, the full partnership meetings, and even special meetings and coffee chats. Nick has been a great asset and was very vital in starting this group. And Nick, I think, as I mentioned to you in my email, you retorted, your promotion to Chief Resilience Officer for the state of New Jersey is well deserved, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and support you and make this a successful effort. Also today, we're going to have Derek Brockbank from the Coastal States organization, and he has over 20 years of experience in coastal adaptation policy and organizational development. And I can say from a personal standpoint that Derek and I worked together when I was mayor of Cape May, and he was the executive director of the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association. And he was very helpful to the city of Cape May and the state of New Jersey in helping us move forward with policy practices that were state of the art and helping us get funding. So I'm looking forward to his presentation on the national legislation and where the funding is coming from and how it's going to be allocated. So on that note, I want to thank you all for being here. And most of all, please continue to provide us with feedback so we can provide timely and important and measurable presentations to you that will keep you involved in our activities.
Great, thank you, Ed. And before I hand it to Laura for the Coastal Resilience Collaborative updates, I just want to mention we have a number of invited guests here today that I've seen in the participant list. I want to welcome everybody that's joining us for the first time, and hopefully you get a lot of great information from this meeting. And please, if you have any questions, place them in the chat. We'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has. So with that, Laura, do you want to provide the next agenda item?
Sure. So we're going to move into our updates from our work groups and some of the other special projects that we got going. We're going to start with Josh Moody. He's going to give us our update on the Ecological Restoration and Science work group.
Thanks, Laura. I'm gonna, I think, keep this pretty brief today with the stacked schedule. For once, I don't have a slide deck to go through. But basically, for the Ecological Restoration and Science work group, we spent last year refining our priorities, polling the various work group members to see what people were interested in us doing. And we narrowed it down to two main tasks this year. We want to develop a regional document and tool organization hub, a place where people can go to find information on various aspects of ecological restoration and science. And that work group's being led by Captain Al from American Littoral Society and myself. And then we have a DEIJ amplification work group being led by Martha Maxwell Doyle from Barnegat Bay Partnership and Meredith Common from New York, New Jersey Baykeeper. And that's going to focus on looking at things that we can do to help amplify restoration that's occurring and the needs in various communities that largely get overlooked. Both of those work groups are going to be meeting for the first time this month to outline our annual tasks and kind of get cracking on some of that work. So at the next meeting, both will have some report outs going on that. If anyone's interested in joining either one of those, they can let Laura and Tom know or email me, and we can get you connected up. And we'll be having our subgroup biannual meetings. Our first one will be starting to schedule for April this year, where we'll solidify the work plans for both subgroups and the tasks and really start moving on them. So if anyone's interested in that, again, please reach out. And we're going to have a, I think, pretty busy and exciting year this year.
Thanks, Josh. The Ecological Restoration Science Work Group has definitely been a producer, so we appreciate all the hard work that you guys have been putting in. Another really successful endeavor has been our technical assistance coffee chats and directory, which has been led by Vanessa Tropiano. So she's going to give us an update on that work.
Laura, hey everybody. So we kicked off our first coffee chat last year on September 17th. It was an hour long. We had really good turnout with about 90 participants made up of many of you on the call today, and then other government representatives, other private sector representatives, and a decent turnout from the communities as well, which is really who we were targeting most, was those local stakeholders. Again, the goal of the coffee chat is to start to better connect and operationalize the NJCRC with local stakeholders, communities, people doing the work at the local level on the ground. So at the first coffee chat in September, we had a presentation from Nick Angarone about the DEP's new local planning for climate change toolkit. And then we broke into breakout rooms to try to foster some small group discussion between CRC partners and community members who could use the technical assistance that the different partners offer. Overall, the feedback from the meeting was really positive. Some people did say that it was a little bit too short. There wasn't great time for really rich discussions in the breakout rooms. So that's definitely something we've taken into consideration. There was a survey after that meeting that we collected a lot of really great feedback from, and I'm not going to go into it in great detail now in the interest of time. And then after that, I went out on maternity leave, and while I was gone, Tom and Laura did a really good job of carrying the torch, and they held a second coffee chat in early December. And I think they said there was about 30 people on that one, which also is a pretty good turnout, especially with virtual fatigue and things that people don't have to be at. At the second coffee chat, they had 3 speakers from local government. I think it was Hoboken, Woodbridge, and Long Beach Township. To talk about the work that they have done in their towns. The 3 of them are kind of, shining examples of resilience implementation in our state leaders, you could say. And so they presented on what they've done, and then there was an opportunity for question and answer. After the first coffee chat, people did indicate that they wanted to see these either bi-monthly or quarterly. So we're kind of sticking with the bi-monthly schedule here, and we're planning our next one for February 24th at 11 a.m. I'm going to be sending out the calendar invite and Zoom registration info for that by the end of this week. Our plan is to sort of have a hybrid of what we did at the first one at the second one, and we'll have 2 or 3 different speakers, but in breakout rooms, where instead of a formal presentation like they did at the second coffee chat, it's going to be more of a quick 15-minute, this is what we do, this is what we can offer communities, and then the rest of the breakout session for about 30 minutes, there can really be a discussion and direct question and answer between the speaker and anybody who has joined that breakout room. And people will be able to switch between the breakout rooms. And right now confirmed as speakers, we have Megan Wren from the Office of Planning Advocacy with the state to talk about municipal land use law and their climate change planning guidance for plan endorsement. And Jason Miller from the Army Corps of Engineers, who's going to talk about the technical assistance and grant technical assistance that they can offer through the Corps.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. We are really excited about the work of the that's been happening in the coffee chats, and our participant list has been growing. So we hope that if you haven't attended one, that you'll consider attending one in the future. And then when we send out the announcements, if you have thoughts on people that might be interested in participating, please share so we can increase participation and awareness of the NJCRC. Moving on to our support staff update specifically, as you may or may not be aware, we did finally secure our 2021-22 contract with funding from the NJDEP, which we're grateful for. Part of the funding, in addition to supporting Tom and I for the support staff support of the NJCRC, we also received some money to pay for Vanessa to do these coffee chats. We also have some money in the contract for hiring a grant writer, as securing funding for new projects and support. Backbone support is important for keeping us moving forward and keeping us creating relevant work. So if you have a grant writer that you might recommend, or if you are a grant writer and would like to recommend yourself, we would be appreciated if you would share yours or their names with Tom and I, and I'll drop my email into the chat in a little bit in case you don't have it already. So we, in addition to the contract and looking for funding, I want to give a shout out to our new partners. So we secured several new partners over the last 6 or 7 months since we all last met. And I just want to mention that they all signed on as general partners. And those new partners include the New Jersey Office of Planning Advocacy with Lisa Avichal, I hope I pronounced that right, as the lead contact, Mordecai Land Trust with Jim Dugan as the lead contact, Monmouth County Planning with Joe Barris, who's also serving on the leadership committee, Lechner Consulting, Mariana Lechner as the contact, floodproofing.com with Sean Leary representing floodproofing.com. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has also signed on as a general partner with Danielle McCulloch as our contact. And then finally, FedEx with Brian Johnson as our primary contact. So welcome to all of you, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. And I think Tom is going to take over to tell you about some of the other work we've been up to.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. So, you know, one of the outcomes of the leadership committee meetings and the coffee chats has been connections with new groups and organizations. And, you know, that's what the partnership is for, the collaborative. And so one of the things that's happened, you know, we've been invited to certain meetings to present about the Coastal Resilience Collaborative. Most recently, we presented to the Atlantic County Resilient NJ Group, SP, or is it PS? I'm sorry if I got that wrong, was the lead in that regional work with the DEP and the partners. We had a great discussion about, you know, how we may be able to partner on certain efforts to promote resilience more broadly in the state of New Jersey. We also spoke to the Ocean County CRS Users Group, we participate in those meetings, and it was nice to have a formal presentation to get people more aware of what the collaborative is and what we're working on. Just I want to just comment on what we're working on. We've had a very successful year so far in terms of rolling out the coffee chats with Vanessa's help, creating the technical assistance directory, which we thank all of our partners that put their information up there for us, as well as engaging with other groups. And so right now, Laura and I are in the midst of developing the next year's work plan, 22-23. And one of our objectives is to try and leverage the work that's going on in the state, the great work the DEP is doing, the Office of Planning Advocacy is doing, among others, to find where CRC partners and work groups can add value to their efforts. And that's one thing we'd like to discuss more generally with the partners. And so as we move out into the spring and summer, we'll probably be reaching out for work group members that would like to get together and brainstorm ideas on how we can build and enhance those existing partnerships and allow us to bring more resources down to the communities to help them with their resilience planning and project implementation. So that's what we plan to do in the short term. And as always, as things come up, we are expecting the NJPAC rules to come out soon. And I think we may want to weigh in on providing comments once they do. So that's another thing on our horizon at this point. So with that, before I move on to the NJDEP update with Nick, are there any questions for the support staff or any of the work group presentations that we just heard from? Okay, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat at any time and we'll respond to them or have the appropriate colleague respond to them. So with that, I'd like to invite our long-term colleague on the NJCRC and friend, Nick Angarone, who's now the Chief Resilience Officer for the state of New Jersey. Well-deserved, Nick, and we're very happy you're here to present to us.
Everybody. Tom, Laura, I was gonna share some slides if you're able to open that up.
Sure.
Should be able now.
All right, you're able to, you can see that?
Yeah, it's great.
All right, thanks. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nick Angarone, and as of January 1st, I am New Jersey's Chief Resilience Officer. As Tom and Ed have noted, I've proudly participated in the Coastal Resilience Collaborative since its inception, and I'm happy to be here today in this new capacity. I do want to, speaking of inception, want to take a moment to recognize Liz Semple and Patty Durr, who were really the driving force behind the collaborative at the very beginning. And so they, both in recent months and maybe for Patty, recent hours, moved on from their from the positions that they've been in for the last decade. So I think Liz is still here, or I think I saw her. So, but I did want to take a moment to recognize them and thank them for setting this up originally. All right, so I'd like to keep my presentation relatively short and perhaps open it up for questions and further conversation. But so you can see through that the title of the presentation is Vision and Priorities. And so the vision part of this, I think, is fairly easy. And I think it's fair to say that it's the CRC's vision as well. And I think, to put it kind of briefly, is that it's resilience through collaborative and informed action, right? The resilience of our ecological systems, our communities, our economy, ensuring that we recognize that climate change is a threat multiplier and is going to exacerbate the challenges of our already overburdened communities. It's too big for any one of us to do on our own. That's why, one of the reasons that this organization exists, right? It's going to take collaborative action by all of us if we are going to make that vision real. So as Chief Resilience Officer, I have a lot of responsibilities, but I want to summarize my priorities into kind of what I've been referring to as 3 pillars, which I'll touch on. Most of you have seen this slide multiple times over the last 2 years, and I share it again to remind us all that we have a statewide climate change resilience strategy. That strategy identifies 127 strategies and actions across 6 priority areas to guide primarily state action. Getting that strategy written and written over the period that it was when we were all largely working from home and dealing with COVID was it a challenge in and of itself, but it's only the first step, right? And now we've got to operationalize it. And so that is the first pillar of my responsibilities, right? Per Governor Murphy's Executive Order 9, that is to provide strategic direction and support to the Interagency Council on Climate Resilience. I think you guys are all aware, but I'll remind everybody that the council was established by that executive order. It's chaired by Jane Cohen, Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Climate Action and the Green Economy. I always have trouble remembering that one. I serve as the vice chair. Executive Order 89 originally established the council with 16 state departments and agencies, but over the last 2 years, we expanded that to include 23, to up to 23, or a total of 23 agencies now. The council was tasked with informing the development of that strategy, but is also tasked with developing consistent statewide policies and actions, establishing both short and long-term action plans by which we'll work together and individually to accomplish the state's resilience goals. So the priorities for the council in 2022 are to take initial steps to do just that. Those are up on your screen. Not the least of which, perhaps the most difficult of which, will be the development of agency-specific resilience action plans, detailing how climate resilience will be considered and incorporated into state agency policies, programs, and decision-making consistent with the statewide climate change resilience strategy. Right, those 23 agencies all have some piece of the resilience pie, if you will. Some are relatively small, some are massive. And so we will work with every one of those agencies to develop that action plan over the next year. The second pillar is to coordinate DEP's policies, programs, and activities to plan for and address current and anticipated impacts of climate change. To that end, DEP has been in the process of developing a climate change action plan, which will identify specific and actionable reforms across 6 topic areas, again, shown on your screen, including resilience. We'll be looking to identify programmatic regulatory changes to incorporate resilience through the department's many decision-making processes. And this is something that I'm hoping we will see, I expect that we'll see in the spring of this year. We will build on the department's climate change action plan. We will build on the resilience chapter of that to really go into more detail at the same time that we're working with the other state agencies to be the department's resilience action plan. That action plan is, of course, based on the most current New Jersey specific climate change science. You are all surely aware that we released New Jersey's first scientific report on climate change in June of 2020. I'm pleased to note that in cooperation with the New Jersey Department of Health and the DEP Division of Science and Research, we will be releasing this spring an addendum to the scientific report focused on climate change impacts on human health and communities. Additionally, as required by Executive Order 89, we'll issue an update to the report in a more user-friendly online form. Some of the most significant updates to climate science that are used to inform our decision-making are captured in two reports the department released this past October on precipitation increases in the state. The reports were completed by the Northeast Regional Climate Center in cooperation with the New Jersey State climatologist. If you haven't taken a look at this information yet, at those reports yet, I strongly suggest that you do. The summary of those two reports is a presentation in and of itself, but I want to note some key conclusions relatively quickly for those of you who haven't seen it yet. First, the first one of the studies looked at changes in hourly and daily extreme rainfall amounts since NOAA Atlas 14 was last published, or the data that was last included in there. Suffice it to say, the data we're currently using to assess flood potential and the design of stormwater infrastructure is we're under designing our infrastructure. Extreme precipitation amounts are now 2.5% higher average statewide than they were 20 years ago, which is the date of the data in Atlas 14, and is as high as 10% in some places. So we're already behind in the data that we've been using. The second study looked at projected changes in extreme rainfall going forward due to climate change. And some of that data is shown on the map that's on your screen. And it shows likely increases of up to 50% in some parts of the state by century's end. It is interestingly a little bit lower in some of our coastal counties, but still a relatively significant increase that we're all going to have to plan for. All right, and this information is critical to us all taking informed action. The third pillar is to provide technical guidance and support to counties and municipalities in their efforts to plan for and address the current and anticipated impacts of climate change. And we're doing this in a number of ways already, not the least of which is working with a collaborative and some of the individual organizations here today, as well as through the department's local resilience planning initiative, Resilient NJ. Most of you rightly associate the 4 regional resilience planning projects with that name, but we are building out a program under Resilient NJ that includes now a small grant program for local governments, incorporation of resilience into the state plan endorsement process, the sea level rise guidance that we released this past June, and the local resilience planning toolkit, which is shown up here on this slide right now. But our local governments, right, they still need significant assistance. To that end, this year, we will embark on a collaborative statewide initiative to build on the toolkit and develop comprehensive resilience planning guidance. One of the most critical aspects of that initiative will be guidance to support development of the climate change related hazard vulnerability assessments, which are now required to be adopted by municipalities pursuant to municipal land use law. We've already taken some initial steps in this initiative. We're working with Rutgers to develop guidance for a municipal environmental justice action plan. We're working with Sustainable Jersey to update some of their resilience actions. And we'll be working with New Jersey Future and Pew on an assessment of the toolkit and development of a consistent vulnerability assessment. This will be a collaborative effort, including this organization and many of you. As I noted at the beginning of the presentation, none of this can do this on our own, and we'll need everybody active supporting our local governments. So as a key part of this initiative, we'll also be looking to develop a coordinated program to provide direct assistance to communities based on the guidance that's developed, incorporating existing and planned efforts such as the Rutgers Resilience Corps and the Coastal Management Program's Regional Coordinator Strategy. So I want to finish with some quick notes. So it's not specifically called out in those slides, but outreach and public engagement is a core piece of every one of those three pillars, and is something that we'll be incorporating into every aspect of those actions. I'll also note that much of the detail of what I just walked through is still under development. We are working with the Commissioner's Office and the Governor's Office to make sure that those pieces are all coordinated. They're coordinated across they are coordinated across all levels of government. And so I'll just finish by saying, right, I don't claim to have all the answers. We don't claim, right, to be able to provide all of the resources necessary to make New Jersey more resilient. But what I will promise to you all is an open mind and a willingness to listen. And to that end, I think I'd like to stop here and take questions and open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Nick. I did see one question in the chat from Tony. Tony, I don't know if you want to come off mute or you want me to ask it. Okay. The question was, will the agency-specific resilient action plans be shared with the public for comments? And what are the timelines for those plans?
So the details of that are still being worked out. At the end of 2021, we had the Interagency Council, the departments and agencies on the council. We identified those 4 priorities for 2022 that I identified for you. Again, one of which being the action plans. Working with those, with all 23 of the agencies, ensuring that they have the guidance that they need to develop that, ensuring that we are providing the appropriate level of detail is all, and what that appropriate level of detail is. Those are the details that are still being worked out. It is fully my intent for those resilience action plans to be public and to go through some level of public review. Again, we're working with the Governor's Office to identify kind of how far we're going to be able to go with that and how quickly we'll be able to move forward. But that is certainly the intent that the public will have the opportunity to participate in that process. And I'll say the same about the department's climate change action plan. It's my expectation that that will be public and available for comment and review.
Thank you, Nick. I think I just saw another question pop in. Let's see. I'm in trouble moving through all the chat. Again, Tony asked, the Rutgers Resilience Corps is just a few graduate students, I think. Is that right? So I really like the idea. Can we build on that in some way?
So yes, they are. There's a handful of graduate students. I don't know if anybody is here from Rutgers who wants to talk on it in more detail, but I was just using it as an example of a number of direct technical support initiatives that are either already in place or are planned, right? For those of you who, it seems like forever ago, who participated in the 309 development strategy for the New Jersey Coastal Management Program. One of the conversations was, how does DEP do that? How does the Coastal Management Program do that? And the ultimate 5-year strategy for the Coastal Management Program was to develop a regional coordinator program. And so exactly how that, and that the time period for which that 5-year process started was this past October. So we'll spend the next year or so kind of developing what that looks like. We have no preconceived notions. and look to coordinate that with all of the direct technical support opportunities that we can provide to communities.
Great, thank you, Nick. Does anybody have one last quick question? I know Derek has a commitment at 2 o'clock, so. Okay, well, please feel free to put any questions you may think of in the chat, and we'll be sure to have them answered for you. Thank you, Nick, very much. That was very insightful, and glad to see that you've hit the ground running. So congratulations again on your appointment. It's well deserved.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, with that, I'd like to introduce Derek Brockbank, Executive Director of the Coastal States Organization. Longtime friend of mine. Derek and I were on the ASBPA board where he was Executive Director there. And one of the things Derek does is he has a lot of knowledge about what's going on in Washington. So we're happy to have him here to give us some insights into what kind of funding is there for coastal resilience in the Infrastructure Act, and hopefully in the Build Back Better bill. So Derek.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate the invite. Always good to be with you and so many other colleagues and friends in New Jersey. And I wanted to give a thank you to Ed for a very kind welcome. It's always been a pleasure working with all the municipalities in New Jersey. So yeah, happy to talk a bit about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'm going to share my screen, a particular quick PowerPoint. Unfortunately, the good news is there's a lot of funding on coastal resilience and resilience in general in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I guess the flip side of that is this is going to be a little bit of a laundry list presentation. So it's not going to be that dynamic. I will say, to save you from scribbling down things as fast as you possibly can, I will, when I finish the presentation, I'll put a link in the chat that has all the information I've shared here and a little bit more in a write-up that CSO did for our members and just the public on coastal resilience and infrastructure in the infrastructure bill. So again, thank you, Derek Brockbank. I'm the Executive Director of Coastal States Organization. I previously been the Executive Director of ASBPA, so I know a number of you through that. But CSO represents the 34 state and territory, coastal state and territories with coastal management plans. So our mission is to support the shared work and vision of the coastal states and territories for the protection, conservation, responsible use, and the sustainable economic development of the nation's coastal resources. So I've had the pleasure of getting to work with Nick and others at New Jersey DEP over the past year. And so our focus is really around that coastal management program, but coastal resilience more broadly. And so with that, I will turn to the topic at hand. And actually, even before I begin, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, I should mention that the context of this is also the federal budget. As most of you probably are aware, the FY22 budget is in a continuing resolution. Congress is supposed to pass the budget. Let's just move too forward fast. Congress was supposed to pass the budget by October. They didn't actually get around to doing that. And so we are in a continuing resolution through February 18th. So in addition to all the specific funding I'm going to talk about here, there are additional funds available in the appropriations bill if it actually passes. Apparently, I have this on an auto forward, so I'm sorry that this keeps translating. I'm not sure if anyone knows exactly how to pause this, but we will see if it can if I can get it to work. Maybe I'll just leave it here. I don't know if can folks see that okay? Sorry about that. So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has a lot of money for coastal resilience. So we'll start with the core. There is over $2.5 billion for coastal risk, storm risk management projects. So these are your coastal projects ranging from levees to beach work. 200 million of it must be for shore protection, but all of that is for coastal work in some form or fashion. This, of course, builds on top of all the funding that they've had from previous disaster supplementals over the past couple of years. So if you look at sort of what the Corps has in terms of coastal funding, it is, from where we were 5 or 6 years ago, it has literally orders of magnitude, 7 or 8 times the amount of coastal funding that it did 5 or 6 years ago, all through the supplemental bill. So huge amount for that. Additional funding, nearly $500 million for stream bank and shoreline protection, sediment management, small flood control projects, other purposes. These are the smaller projects, your beneficial use projects, your stream projects, your shoreline, your CAP 204 kind of projects. I will note that all of these are to fill backlog, so there are no new projects are allowed in this. This is to fill to pay for existing authorized projects. They also have $251 million for flood control and coastal emergencies. So this is what happens, money that can be spent after a storm. So it sort of fills that coffer. Although worth noting that something that ASBPA had worked on is this would be restored. This funding could be used to restore to full project profile. So it's not just to return it to where it was before a storm. This money could be used to build a beach back to its full project extent, and that's at no local cost. So that's the Army Corps stuff. There's also a ton of money in there for NOAA related or NOAA funds. The thing that CSO works on most closely is $207 million in grants to states and territories. So this is the CZM money. So this would money that would go to the New Jersey Coastal Zone Management Program, to New Jersey DEP. Other states would have access to that. And so then there's $492 million for the NCRF, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Coastal Resilience Fund. So that's the competitive grant funds. And then there's an additional $56 million for regional ocean partnerships. So in New Jersey, that would be the Mid-Atlantic Regional MARCO, Mid-Atlantic Regional Consortium Collaboration on the Ocean. Sorry, I'm getting that acronym wrong. Worth noting that all of these are over 5 years. So when you're actually thinking about how much it is, divide it by 5. So you're looking at about $40 million a year for coastal for state programs, $100 million year for the National Coastal Resilience Fund, $11 million for ROPs. Still pretty significant money. ROPs currently get about $1 million a year, and so now they would be getting $11 million a year. So significant increases. But it keeps going, right? So there's money to the National Estuarine Research Reserves. There's money in competitive grants for community-based habitat restoration. This is a fund out of NOAA that I haven't actually seen very much information about how it's going to be used. More money for national estuary programs and other EPA geographic-based things. So less for New Jersey, but that would be things like Chesapeake Bay, Long Island Sound efforts. And then $1 billion for FEMA pre-disaster hazard mitigation. So huge amounts of money going to FEMA, and additional money for a FEMA hazard mitigation revolving loan fund. Those last two are not specifically coastal hazards, but hazards in general, but coastal is very much available for it. Okay, so there's probably more, depending on how you define resilience, there is probably more funding available for things that are maybe more loosely resilient, more just habitat restoration. What does this all mean? When does this happen? How does this get passed? So this passed in Congress and was signed into law in November. Spend plans, meaning how the agencies plan to spend all this out, are due to Congress in February. Obviously, it's Congress. We don't know when they will pass it, but spend plans usually don't take too long to be approved because they are theoretically just something that Congress needs to rubber stamp. So we hope that they are approved by the end of March. So for things like the Corps, that will include very specific projects. This is exactly what they will fund because it is intended to clear out some of that coastal resilience backlog. For things like NOAA, it's going to approve the process. So what does NOAA need to put forward? What do states need to put forward to apply for CZ dollars? Are there things that need to be included in NIFWIF's National Coastal Resilience Fund that states are going to need to apply for? We have just heard this past week that Congress or that agencies aren't allowed to put out notice of funding intent until Congress has approved their spend plan. We were hoping that they could propose, they could put out proposals and agencies, states could start submitting LOIs for this funding, even though the funding wouldn't be available until Congress passed the spend plan, but that's actually not going to be the case. So the earliest we'll see letters of intent or notice of funding opportunities will be, I would guess, the end of March, which means the funding isn't actually going to start rolling out till late summer, early fall. So huge amount of money going to be available. It's not available yet. It will be very soon. And then lastly, for the Build Back Better, there's actually much less in terms of variety of coastal resilience in here, but there's a huge chunk of money. It's basically a all-purpose $6 billion to NOAA to provide funding, technical assistance for the purposes of restoring various coastal habitats. So this is a huge amount of money with not very much direction from Congress on how it could be spent. But whether the Build Back Better, this reconciliation package actually moves forward, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I've been reading the papers too. It seems like it's a little bit dead in the water right now, but it's possible they could split it up and take some different pieces out of it. You know, there hasn't been, y'all have probably read that Joe Manchin from West Virginia has been the one who's been the real, you know, holding this up. He has indicated that he is perfectly fine with the climate and resilience pieces of this. So I think if it does move, this is likely to be in there. But whether or not it can actually find a path forward is a big question. And I think that's about it. I am happy to take questions, but as I said, I will include a link to more information in the chat function, so you can go there. So thanks so much, and apologies for the having to see my PowerPoint via the just setup menu rather than the slideshow.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek, and no worries about the slides. We've done worse on ourselves. So does anybody have a question for Derek? And I see you just put the link in the chat. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was really informative, and it's good to see that there's so much money in the Infrastructure Act. So even if the Build Back Better stalls, there's still plenty of money, and we'll be looking forward to seeing those spending plans.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, I'd like to transition back to Josh Moody, who is going to lead a panel for us on some of the coastal restoration tools that the collaborative has been active in helping develop. One of the things that we thought was interesting is that with the funding coming through the Infrastructure Act, especially into the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation program, most of the projects funded by NIFWF require some prioritization of what you plan to do. So there is some stakeholder engagement and some thought on the front end about how you've come up with the locations you want to prioritize. And so most of the work that this panel will review are actually tools that were designed to help get us to that type of prioritization. And so I'm happy to introduce Josh to tell us what it all means.
Thanks, Tom. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good to go? Okay, well, we're gonna move into this pretty quick because we're gonna try to get through introductions to 3 different tools in a pretty small amount of time. But just to add a quick overview of why we're talking about this, recently, in the last 5 years or so, there's been development of a variety of different regional tools, and really to maximize their utility, we really need to understand what their compatibility is and how it moves us from project conception to project implementation. And there's really a lot of commonalities among restoration initiatives in terms of the questions we ask around them at various steps. And today, we're going to discuss 3 tools that can be useful at the beginning of the restoration process. And we're asking a few different questions. One, where should we work? And Rick Lathrop is going to discuss the CERAP tool around that. Refining a project location, we find a place to work, but there might be a lot going on there. And Kim McKenna is going to give us an overview of the Bay Island Restoration Planner tool from an island perspective. And then once you have your area, identifying the problem, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the wetlands assessment tool for condition and health. And then at the end, we'll sort of wrap that up. If you have a project in place, where do you go from there? So all of these different tools are informed by different types of materials, from stakeholder engagement at CERAP to a lot of our wetlands monitoring for the Bay Islands Restoration Planner and for WATCH. And so we're going to try to touch on a few of those different facets here. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, they're welcome to reach out for further clarification or more detail. So I guess, Rick, you can take it away and I'll advance the slides as you need them.
Okay, so our first acronym CERAP, stands for Coastal Ecological Restoration and Adaptation. And so the way this has been structured is to start from a statewide perspective in terms of an assessment to characterize different areas based on 8 different issues of concern. And then we went this past year, have gone through the process, kind of a grassroots nomination process that many of you may have been involved in terms of identifying areas where there are these issues of concern in terms of various vulnerabilities. And then that's kind of an area. And then within an area, you may have multiple projects. And so those might actually be more specific in terms of multiple restoration projects within a larger area. And as part of this, we developed a ArcGIS online site that allows users to look at the various issues of concern. Next. This slide is showing some of the results from the nomination process. So we got approximately 177 project areas, nominated areas of interest, and then within that, a subset of total projects, and pretty good geographic scope from the Hudson and the Meadowlands down Atlantic coast and then up into Delaware Bay and into the river itself. As part of this, we also have collected information on spreadsheet in terms of the area. And then if you want to look at the areas that have been nominated, the project sites, there's 2 websites that have that information as well. This is the first kind of tranche of nominations. DEP sees this, periodically opening this up again. Next, please. What we're going through now is for all of these is to characterize these using a consistent set of data. And in this case, those 8 issues of concern, and then as well as providing a broader geospatial context. So in this case, I'm showing in kind of the red dotted line, an area, that's kind of the area nominated of interest. And then the blue and the green, those might be 2 different projects. Okay, and then what we're also evaluating now is that area, and then the immediately adjacent zone, and then a broader zone. So you can look at the kind of, further geographic context, especially when we're interested in how this might relate to urbanized areas and the like. Next, please. And then this is in terms of, thinking about the New Jersey Bay Islands Restoration Plan. I guess at this point, we're going to transition over to the next speaker.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim McKenna. I'm with the Stockton University Coastal Research Center, and I'll be talking about the next resilience planning tool that we recently put together for the New Jersey Bay Islands Initiative. And this tool is called the New Jersey Bay Islands Restoration Planner. It has a bunch of nicknames from BIRP to NJDEP, but today I'm going to call it Restoration Planner. I also want to acknowledge that Bill Shadle is on the call today too, and Bill was very instrumental in getting this planner up and running for us. But for the next 6 minutes, I'm going to be chatting with you just to kind of briefly go over the planner. To the left of this slide is the welcome page of the planner, and its current focus is of the islands within the Barnegat Estuary, and that stretches from the Manasquan Inlet to Little Egg Inlet. This tool or this planner was developed as a decision support tool to prioritize island restoration for the New Jersey Bay Islands Initiative. Many of you of the work group members are on this call right now, but for those of you who don't know NJBI, the group's composed of federal, state, county, municipal, academic, non-governmental partners, as well as citizens. And the overall goal is to restore or manage these Bay Islands as one system. Also, we are hopeful that the outcomes from this planner or this tool could be used to feed into the CERAP tool as recommended sites by the New Jersey Bay Islands Initiative. When you look at the center map, that identifies 92 subaerial islands. So those little red dots represent many different islands. And then there's also 13 submerged islands that are included in this data set. It is ArcGIS based. And then on the left are some of the conditions or data sets are included in the tool, but I'll go over those in the next 2 or 3 slides. So next, please. So the New Jersey Bay Islands Initiative identified 28 features that could help us with this island prioritization, as well as also help us gather grants or information to help with permitting. So the data sets are organized by 2 different items. One is island condition and the other is project planning. And these are just 2 example data sets that are included in the restoration planner. To the left is a data set that was collected by Barnegat Bay Partnership and U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff to look at marsh conditions of these islands. They use the Makua Mid-Tram rapid assessment tools to determine wetland condition. 54 islands have been visited by 2020, more have been visited since then. And then these islands are ranked from 0 to 100, with the lower numbers being a more stressed wetland system and the higher numbers being a more healthy system. To the right is an assessment that we did here at the CRC, looking at shoreline changes of these islands. And this was comparing the tidelands line, the 1977 tideland shoreline, to the 2015 land use land cover shoreline, and then coming up with changes per island. Now you'll see those little transects that shows changes. They're based on like 60-foot spacing. And then the islands were averaged, the shoreline changes were averaged per island, and that's the information that's included in the restoration planner. 67 islands were included in that analysis. And then we saw rates of shoreline change from 82 feet to accretion of over 100 feet. So next, please. So when you go into that main welcome page, you'll see a series of supporting layers. And this just shows some of the supporting layers. Here, you'll see the waterways. Those are the black are the state channels, and the red is the New Jersey Intercoastal Waterway. Also shown here are the subaqueous soil data sets that were collected by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we were able to pull that information in too, as well as bathymetry. And what this does is this helps the person using the tool determine, okay, if I've got a channel and it needs to be dredged, this is the type of sediment that I would expect there. Next, please. So when you go and you're in the web, the welcome page, and say you select an island, and in the center, you'll see this purplish island with a blue circle and then a red circle. So you select the island. The blue circle represents the 1 mile buffer. The red represents the 3 mile buffer around the island. And that's just to show when you pull in the state channels, you'll be able to see what if sediment is available, if that's the type of project that you want to restore the island. Also, the planner shows you, in this case, it's Middle Sedge Island, how many acres are contained in that island, and those are subaerial acres, as well as the edge erosion and the losses that we have seen between 1977 and 2015. So in this case, there's been a loss of over 4 acres of land. Next, please. So when you further go into and kind of hone in on Middle Sedge Island, you can see more information. In this case, you can visually see the tidal ditching, but we also have quantified the number of feet in tidal ditching. So in this case, there's over 5,000 feet of tidal ditching. for some reason that has been done as a management, maybe to manage mosquitoes or whatever. But also included here is the mid-tramp score. And for Middle's Edge Island, it's kind of right in the middle. We're not sure if it's healthy, but not sure if it is stressed too. When you look at it visually here, it may be more stressed than from when they went out and did the initial assessment. And as I said, they went to one point and did one rapid assessment. The planner also gives information on locations of SAV to the shoreline, pools and pans acreage, and et cetera. So next, please. So where we are with the next steps, we are still, the tool is in the beta stage testing right now. We are refining the tool as we speak. We are doing a real life test with the tool, trying to choose islands for restoration under a NIFWIF grant. We're going to be choosing 5 islands for determining the types of projects that could be done at those islands. We also are talking about adding data layers, expanding the area south to Absecon and inland. So that's where we are right now, and I'm going to hand it over to Josh.
Thanks, Kim, and thank you, Rick. So, you're a stakeholder out there, there's some money being released, you're looking to do a project there, and how are we gonna, get there? So you could visit, CERAP, and you could look around for projects that align with different issues of concern and various goals that you're interested in. And maybe one of those areas is out at Barnegat Bay, and now you want to refine down, and you can use the restoration planner that Kim talked about to look at a few of these different islands in that area and zoom in on them, find out what the conditions are generally there that you would have to deal with when planning a restoration project. But then once you get onto the ground at a place, if you want to start getting into the design phase, you really got to know what you're designing for. What's the issue? What's the problem? And a lot of times we'll rely on things that we see out there. We'll look at a few different things and we'll take a few observations in, and based on our perspective and where our experience is, we'll try to identify the issues. But as people who work in wetlands know, a lot of the issues have to do with a lot of interacting variables, from vertical position to horizontal state, hydrology, biology that's there. It's very hard to just look at one or two things and have a good understanding of what the issue may be. So the wetlands, the watch tool, the wetlands assessment tool for condition and health is a guidance package to allow you to holistically evaluate a suite of currently 6, and we're adding a 7th attribute that have been shown to be fundamental for salt marsh function, and using methods that have been scientifically defensible. So it'll ask you to go into a site, look at a few different things, collect evidence on it, and then the tool is generally a hypothesis testing device to see if you provided evidence based on what your needs and thoughts are for the site that there's an issue there, and what kind of issue that is. The tool currently exists as a spreadsheet, but we're working with Rutgers in the coming year to get this more online, looking more like the restoration planner, like as Kim showed, and CERAP. So very quickly, what are you putting into watch? What is it evaluating? Well, currently, there are 6 different attributes: horizontal position, vertical position, biology, hydrology, soil condition, and water chemistry, and we're adding a sediment attribute this year as well. And what the user does is you'll collect some data from your site, you'll add information on its current state, and then you're going to add some reference information. Now, Kim touched on Makwa and Mid-Tram, which is a great source for regional reference data, but you might also have data that's from long-term monitorings of your sites or adjacent sites. You might have data from the primary academic literature. Watch will allow you to put in your reference data as needed as your criteria that you'll be evaluating against. Using a lot of the Makwa and Mid-Tram data, you can get trajectory data for these different attributes. You can forecast the time frame, and then what Watch is going to do is take the stuff that you put in there and combine it in a few different ways. It's going to let you know, based on the data that you put in and the criteria you've set, if you have a current issue and in which attributes. It's going to take your trajectory data, your forecasted time frame, your criterias and your current data, and it's going to mix those up to project those values forward, to project what states you're going to be looking at in the time of interest that you've set for the tool for each of the different attributes. And it's going to answer the questions, one, for each attribute, do you have a violation today? Or is there likely to be a violation tomorrow? And based on the different combinations of different violations across these attributes and based on ecological understanding, you're going to get one of three outputs from the watch tool for your site. Either that there has been a deficiency detected. The information you put in is enough to state that enough attributes in the relationships are not up to the standards you have set, and therefore there's likely something either wrong today or tomorrow. Or maybe you haven't, maybe you don't have information on all 7. You put in information on 2, you want to see how it goes. If one of those gets red flag, watch will let you know what other attributes are closely related ecologically and that you should probably try to get some information on. Watch will also recommend different methodologies that you can employ to get at these different metrics for each attribute. And then in the output of the tool, you're going to get a few different things which are currently being updated and will be available in the newer version. But for primary health-based attributes such as horizontal position, vertical position, biology, hydrology, you're going to get a summary of your different violations and your attribute status, as well as associated attributes you may want to look at, along with the outcomes of what is the deficiency status of the site based on the weight of the evidence you provided. We're now with the soil attribute and, the sediment attribute that we're putting in there now. It's going to look at some of the information that it asks you to provide, and it's going to contextualize these based on different information related to the vertical and horizontal position, decomposition rates for that area, and available sediment that you have in the water column. And it's going to give you a few considerations around your site. It's going to let you know in which areas of the site you're likely to get additional sedimentation, if you should be worried about decomposition rates offsetting that, or if you really have a deficit of TSS. What is it around sediment that's going to affect these different movements along vertical, horizontal positioning, hydrology? And then it will look at 2 different components of water chemistry, salinity and nutrients, and let you know a couple of more global parameters as you go into the design phase. What are some things you can be considering as you start to think about biological communities for which salinity and nutrient concentrations in those areas play a vital role in not only the persistence, but how well these organisms are going to thrive and flourish at these different sites. So to wrap up, these tools are coming together online, and they can be used in a series. When we have tools that are able to be used in a series, this sort of increases the power of all the tools together. From stakeholder information, we can start to prioritize, look at where we want to work. From information on the restoration planner, we can really zero in and get good baseline data and start to narrow down what sort of different tactics we would need at different locations on these different islands. And with Watch, you can delve into the ecological relationships and start to ask, what are you really designing for? And I'll just take this moment, because there's 1 moment left actually, to remind people that, a framework for developing monitoring plans for coastal and wetland restoration was developed in New Jersey with a variety of different people from a variety of different sectors that help people develop monitoring plans, goal-based monitoring plans, and that recommend a series of different metrics for each goal and associated methodologies that span, a high-tech to a low-tech gradient. So once you get a project in, and as you're thinking about these projects, we do have these resources out there that you can utilize to answer the question, how well is my project working? Is it meeting its goals? And I'll put the link for that in the chat in just a minute. And with that, I think we are ending right on time.
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you, Josh and Kim and Rick. That was a great presentation. And I did see there was some question and answering going on in the chat. So if anybody has any additional questions, oh, I see one new message. Oh, that's you. Please put them in the chat. There's one that just came up. Can you see that, Josh?
I can. I think the message to the community is on how to use these tools. Yeah, agreed. And, maybe this is something that, Vanessa and I could potentially follow up on and start to think about how we can, a lot of these tools they're in various stages of being released. And I think, the restoration planner is furthest along, but watches out in one format. But I think it would be nice is once these new versions are out, maybe towards the end of this year, we could, maybe try to plan some sort of walkthrough with a little more time.
Yeah, and I think one thing we've also been thinking about is some case study examples too, where we have projects built. That'd be a nice connection to see what the experience really is. And I know you guys, yourself, Captain Al, and others have some tremendous experience in how these projects get built and some of the challenges there. So, well, great. Thank you very much. At this point, I think I'm going to hand it back over to Laura to introduce our partners for partner updates.
Yes, so we are grateful to all of our partners for showing up today and being part of our meeting. We definitely want to elevate the great work that you are doing individually, but also give you this opportunity to, showcase your wares so that hopefully we can create some more collaborative projects that will bear the fruit of great projects and tools like the ones we just saw. So we're gonna move on down our list. I think, Tom, if you're gonna share the slides again, Captain Al was gonna give us an update on American Littoral Society, and he had a couple of slides in there.
I did. Hopefully my internet's good. It's been going in and out today, so I apologize.
And we do encourage, at the end, we'll have some time for others who may not be on our original list, if you want to give a quick update on your work as well. But why don't you go first, Captain Al?
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Captain Al. I'm the Habitat Restoration Program Director for the American Littoral Society. Congrats to Nick. Just wanted to put that out there while I got a chance to say that. And we've been doing a lot of restoration work, and I just wanted to highlight two projects. One we recently finished, and we'll come back in the spring, and then one we finished in the fall. So what you're looking at here is in Shark River Inlet. This area on the island, Shark River Island, was highly eroding. A pump house was in jeopardy. Maybe 20 feet of shoreline was left by the pump house. And the local condo association there was really worried about property lines because every storm now would come past their property line. It was just eroding everything. So what we did here with E-Concrete and a company called Renova, we're also, for this, we were funded by Neptune and the condo association themselves, NTNC came in too and gave us a little living shoreline money as well. We basically made a hybrid living shoreline. You can't see it as well here, but E-Concrete on the toe edge of this, we have the concrete that actually has gaps in between. It's pretty interesting how this mattress works, this concrete mattress. And then our job was to connect the marsh to that hybrid kind of that concrete structure and create a sill. So as you can see here, it's about a 200-foot long sill. And up next to that, we added bar logs and plugged that with Spartina, as well as planted on center every foot, Spartina alterniflora. We're very fortunate that we didn't have to go any high marsh plants or anything like that, because where we were at mean sea level pretty much is where we were able to bring up. So I think we raised it up about 12 inches on this one. And now we're monitoring it as well. And you can see here too, the stakes out here. Of course, we have to think about Canada geese and eating our plants. So we put up some bird stuff to kind of deter them from coming in there and landing. Haven't seen any of that, but I do think we're going to have to do some replanting for sure. I saw some of the plugs had popped last time I was out there, and we already knew that we were going to come back anyway and replant some spots. But a pretty successful project so far. You can see we had a silt curtain up. A few things in the beginning. When we were adding the sand was donated by, I believe it was from Monmouth County, and then trucked in by Neptune, which was nice. And it had that iron oxide kind of in it. So it kind of leached out into the water column at first, and people were a little nervous that we were silting up channels and things like that. But we worked it out. Now I even teach a class out there. So we go out to Shark River with Kane University, was the most recent one. and they did some planting for us as well. We also did a berm, a vegetated berm, which is actually taking really well. And native goldenrod, different grasses and things like that really took. And four different types of shrubs that we added in all native species and salt tolerant. So that's that project. You can go to the next one because I only have 2 minutes. This is the big one. This one we just finished up December 31st. This is at Forked River Beach. This is about 2,600 linear feet of reef shoreline that we're protecting from the whole town here. Basically starts up by the park and goes all the way down to the lagoon, 7 different reefs, kind of in the same pattern that we've done our reefs in Delaware Bay with a kind of like the sawtooth way to attenuate wave, double road. What's different about this project though is we used HESCO baskets, and HESCO baskets are basically 3x3 filled with rock. And then on the outside, we added rock faces, or I call them shell faces now, where we encapsulated these reefs with shell. So the offshore reef is complete. We have to go back and hog ring the lids. That's about it. The inshore reef, we just wanted to get the rock in right now, but then we're going to come back this spring and set it with up to 70 million oyster larvae. And that'll be done by Parsons Mariculture. Stockton University is involved with us on this, and it's funded by the state. So we really appreciate all that. So we'll come back and finish the inshore reef this year when our schedule's based on oyster set, for that. And then we'll put the lids on that. But so far what we're seeing here is attenuating waves. Originally this site here, as you get farther south on it, they lost about, since 1995, like 120 some feet of shoreline. And it keeps happening. So right now, people that live there, the residents, without this to attenuate some of the waves, they're losing their property now. There's one property that's probably half gone, and another that lost his entire backyard pretty much, and he had to come back in and redo that. And there's a guy building right now too, and the water comes underneath his house. So it's a pretty interesting area. Definitely when we talk about resiliency and ways that we can try to figure out things, we're trying that here. Ultimately, when we first proposed this, we wanted to add about 35,000 tons of sand to the beach too. But that's a little different than what we've done here. So stopping the waves first, providing that ecological uplift with, up to 70 million oyster. And then hopefully we come back and do a vegetated berm here and maybe a little bit of beach. We also have to come back in the spring, guys, and we are going to do test plots and plant eelgrass. And we're going to see how that eelgrass takes. We had Stockton, Dr. Z actually mapped this for us before baseline. And I'd like to come back in about a year or two, map it again to see if we get denser beds rather than the patchiness that's associated with SAV in Barnegat Bay. So those are 2 projects I'm highlighting. We have others, trust me, Delaware Bay, all kinds of stuff. So, and I want to just mention too, because of the erosion here in Forked River Beach, it's been designated as a high turbid area. So it's a water quality grant and a restoration grant all wrapped up into one. And the thought here is stop the shoreline from eroding as best, at least slow the rate down, but then also use the filter feeding of the oyster to kind of clear it up. So pretty cool idea. That's it.
Thanks, Al. That is fantastic. There's so much there, but we're going to move on just to keep leave time for everybody. So Danielle McCulloch is going to talk to us about what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is up to in 2 brief minutes.
Sure. I have some slides too. I don't know if I'm allowed to share, but if not, I can just talk, whatever's easiest.
Looks like you can.
Okay, let's give it a whirl. Hey everyone, it's good to see all the great partners working in New Jersey, and I appreciate being a part of this great effort. Just to introduce folks that aren't aware, I'm Danielle McCulloch. I'm with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Coastal Program, and we're a restoration program that focuses on helping partners and various landowners restore their coastal habitats. We focus on implementing and monitoring a lot of different habitat restoration work, but currently we're focusing on marsh restoration work, and this includes ecologically important shoreline protection projects, beneficially using sediment to enhance marshes, particularly on shorebird habitats, and then doing some hydrology improvements where there's grid ditches, and that's something that we see throughout New Jersey. Other things that we do other than on the ground restoration work is we help our partners write proposals for funding. We're a federal partner, so we can never receive funding, but we like to help our partners increase their capacity to do that. We can help develop permit applications and acquire materials for on the ground work. This year, we're focusing a lot on hydrology issues in the marsh. So we're working to implement a series of marsh restoration pilot projects that aim to improve marsh hydrology using low tech, low risk, and low disturbance techniques that set marshes on a self-healing trajectory. And this involves low disturbance ditch remediation and runneling work to naturally get that hydrology moving the way it used to before it was grid ditched. And then we are working with Forsyth Refuge, the state Fish and Wildlife Department, and Ducks Unlimited to collect elevation data to inform this work. And one area that we're doing this is what we call the AT&T track on Forsyth Refuge. And you can just see the extensive grid ditching here. An example of the kind of work we're doing in areas where we see that there's a deficit in where the water is. If we could just hand dig a little bit of a runnel to kind of improve the natural hydrology of the system, that improves the way a marsh can function really well. We're also involved in 2 large marsh restoration sites in Barnegat Bay that have high erosion rates, limited migration space, and elevation and sediment deficits and hydrology issues from grid ditching. So we want to apply these low-tech techniques in conjunction with some of the other novel marsh restoration techniques, such as trying to control some of the edge erosion in areas where we can't have any migration. And Barnegat Bay is a great example of this. So right now we're just working to collect baseline data to inform marsh restoration work at these sites. One of those sites is the Lighthouse Center for Natural Resource Education. This has a variety of issues, a lot of baseline data that's been collected by a lot of the partners on the call. And we're looking to figure out ecologically responsible ways to protect the shoreline, to help with some of the elevation deficits, and then restore the hydrology using those low-tech techniques. So we're busy this year, but if you have any ideas on restoration projects you'd like to partner on, let me know. And that's it from us.
Super, thanks Danielle. Again, we're gonna move on quickly, moving away from some of the marsh work. We're gonna hear from Monmouth County Planning. Harriet, I'm gonna mess this up, Honigfeld, did I get that close? Oop, you're muted, Harriet.
You did well. Yeah, it's Honigfeld, but I consider that very close. So I'm Harriet Honigfeld. I work with Joe Barris at the Monmouth County Division of Planning, and I'm going to give you a brief update on a few of the projects and programs that we're working on. We have a CRS program in Monmouth County that helps support the 17 municipalities in the county that participate in the program, and we will be hosting a joint CRS users group meeting with Morris and Ocean counties on February 16th. If any of you are interested, you can shoot me an email. I can put my email in the chat or reach out to Joe, and we can make sure you are invited. We are also preparing a floodplain species assessment and plan that is focused on our 17 participating towns. And that assessment and plan is largely focused on threatened and endangered species, particularly federally listed species. So I know we've done some outreach recently to U.S. Fish and Wildlife to get some data, and we will be reaching out to our communities to see what kind of steps and measures they're taking to help protect the listed species in their communities. We have 5, we call them CAVs, but community assistant visits scheduled soon within the county, and so we're providing support to those municipalities. I'm going to next touch on the work, some of the work that we do with the Department of Defense. We are on our 3rd grant related to what we call JLUS, so the joint land use study. And currently we have a two-part grant from the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. And we are preparing two different studies that expand upon our previous efforts. We first published a joint land use study in 2017 and worked with various partners in the region to complete that. We have a consultant that has just finished the first draft of what we're calling the next steps to compatibility study. And it focuses on the 5 towns immediately surrounding Naval Weapons Station Earl. Aside from analyzing land use changes since the 2017 report, the new study will include a toolbox of land use measures that these towns can potentially implement to help reduce some of the conflicts that may potentially occur with the base's mission and help protect the safety of the citizens in the communities. We have another study that is more focused on coastal restoration work along the New York, New Jersey, along the Bayshore. And we're calling that the Bayshore Coastal Resilience Design Study. We've narrowed in to focus on portions of 2 sites featured in our JLUS2 study. So the 2 sites that we're narrowing in on are Whale Creek in Aberdeen and Flat Creek in Union Beach. The consultant just removed 2 different sets of data loggers. They've been collecting data related to tidal creeks and wetlands and tidal flow. And after analyzing the data, we'll be preparing more detailed conceptual designs than what we had in our Bayshore Coastal Design Study. We're learning, as I think more of you have experience in this area, that we thought we'd get final plans and we'd be able to go to permitting, with a very little amount of money, and we're realizing it, takes quite a bit more data collection and thought and analysis to be able to implement one of these projects. But we will keep you posted on our progress. Both grants should be wrapping up this year.
Thank you so much, Harriet. I'm being respectful of everyone's time. I know we're running a few minutes over. We do have about 4 more partners that asked to share what they've been working on. So if you're willing to hang around, we appreciate it. If you're not able to, this is all being recorded and you can always catch it at a later time. If you're able to hang around, up next is David Steinman, who is from National Resource Conservation Service, which is part of the USDA.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is David Steinman. I'm a soil scientist with USDA NRCS, and I'm out of the Hamilton, New Jersey Soil Survey Office. I just wanted to give a quick update on Coastal Zone Soil Survey and blue carbon mapping projects that we're working on here in New Jersey. First, just wanted to highlight on the National Coastal Blue Carbon Assessment Project, which is a national initiative started by the NRCS's Soil and Plant Science Division. And the goal is to sample and update the soil mapping and carbon values within coastal soils. This sampling specifically focuses on tidal marshes, submerging uplands, and barrier islands and subaqueous soils. The sampling focuses on collecting soil organic carbon and bulk density data for carbon stock values. In New Jersey, we partnered with multiple estuary groups to sample long-term monitoring sites, which have increased the number of sampling points that we've had in the coastal zone from 6 to 31 full soil characterization sites. These sampled sites not only include soil organic carbon and bulk density data, but also a suite of other chemical and physical soil analysis that's included in our Sergo Soil Survey product. If you go to the next slide real quick. This is just an example of our sampling points here. We had 6 here and that on the left, and then you can see how we've greatly expanded. You can go to the next slide, please.
Did it come up? I think there might be a delay in the.
Yeah, it's up now. Thanks. This is just a quick example of the product that we're trying to achieve with these initiatives. The photo on the left is the Tuttle Marsh area is mapped as a miscellaneous map unit. There's no soil series associated with this. There's no soil data behind the map unit, and it lacks significant spatial soil map unit delineations. Whereas the product on the right is an updated product that has soil lab data linked to the mapping. Soil series are associated with the map units, and the map units have been spatially delineated by geomorphic landforms. These updated map units include the updated soil physical and chemical lab data, soil organic carbon, and bulk density values. The updated product also has the subaqueous soils delineated, and also out on the Barrier Island, you could see multiple map units out there. The updated CZSS product can be used as a baseline soils product in restoration projects, and identifying which soil series sequester the least and most amount of carbon. Our Surgo data set and web soil survey data should be used when planning any type of restoration project to evaluate the soils that are on site. So that's just a quick update of some of the things that we're doing with NRCS. If anyone has any questions or wants any more data or any more information on the project, you can contact me. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And next up is Meredith Comey from New York, New Jersey Gatekeeper.
Hi, everybody. I don't have any slides, so I will be pretty brief. Just some updates from Baykeeper. The big project that we'll be working on over the next 18 months. Some of you heard about this at the leadership committee meeting, but it is the NIFWIF grant that we got to do final design and permitting of nature-based features. So it'll be for the entire 3,200 feet of Naval Weapons Station Earl, and it will take these preliminary designs from the last NIFWIF grant and bring them to completion. Partners are on the call today. We've got Monmouth County, and Marissa from Earl is out there as well. And DEP is also a partner. And then Biohabitats is the consultant that will be doing all the designs. In addition to that, we have some other pots of money to keep expanding our pilot living shoreline that is also at Earl, and continue the research we're doing there on sedimentation, biodiversity, oyster growth and mortality. Also, we keep stocking the area between the piers with adult oysters, hoping to add to the recruitment that we're seeing at Earl. We are really looking to expand into northern New Jersey more. We now have office space at Kearney Point. So that gives us a chance to really take our education and resilience ideas and to kind of move it, a bit north. I love Raritan Bay. It's where I want to be, but there's other areas that also need attention. I guess that is what we will be up to in 2022. The main things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you.
Isabel, sorry, I feel like I'm rushing everybody, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. Thanks, Isabel, for filling us in on the New York, New Jersey Harbor Estuary Program. Moving up north.
Thanks. And I will just be very brief as well. I just wanted to give people an update. I know I've presented here in the past about our aquatic connectivity through Climate Ready Infrastructure Project. So I just want to give folks an update. We've been working really hard over the past year in partnership with the Rick Lathrop and the Rutgers Raritan River Consortium. And we've really we've managed to get a lot of assessments down. So this is the project, just to remind everyone, that looks at aquatic connectivity for fish and other organisms, and then takes that same data and looks at that infrastructure for any kind of flooding or hydrologic issues, and kind of uses both those things to make priority recommendations for restoration of these bridges and culverts. So I just wanted to let people know we've done a huge area, and if I could just share my screen briefly, I'll show you where we've been working. So if you see this little map, this is when the lower Raritan and South Rivers. I'll just zoom out a little bit. Oops. And you can see each of these little colored dots are a bridge or a culvert that the Rutgers team has surveyed, and we've got a huge data set now from a lot of watersheds. So look forward over the next couple of years of sharing all these recommendations with you all for more connectivity friendly and safer from flooding watersheds. Thanks.
Thank you, Isabel. And lastly on our list is Margot Walsh, moving it back out to the Open Coast for the Jersey Shore Partnership.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to know that in addition to our commitment and our purpose to join all of you and work with the DEP on community education and outreach, telling the story of what we need our community partners to do to make climate change resiliency real. But the partnership is also recommitting itself to reintroducing our legislation for an increase in shore protection funding. While we were thrilled with the $20 million appropriation that the governor had in the 2022 budget, the uncertainties of year-by-year appropriation is really not effective for achieving a long-term investment in climate resiliency. And so we are working with our sponsors, Vingo Powell in the Senate is the primary sponsor, and Yvonne Lopez of Middlesex County is the assembly sponsor. And what we're trying to achieve is working with the Corps of Engineers so successfully for 30 years and more, actually, going back before the 80s. We have a cost share partnership that we just don't want to lose. And the arrangement that we have through the Shore Protection Fund keeps bringing millions of dollars to New Jersey, like we're looking forward to now. But if we don't have the funding available, and if it comes a year by year grab for appropriation dollars, it's going to be very difficult to maintain that partnership, which we definitely don't want to lose. So it's beach replenishment, but as you know, talking today, it's more than that. It's living shorelines, it's protecting wetlands, it's building our marshes. It's all of the above that we want to work with the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers, but the state needs dedicated funding to achieve its objectives. And so we're going to continue very forcefully to work on that this year, as well as spread the word. Community education and outreach is needed for public and private partnerships to achieve the state's goals. So that's my story.
Thank you so much, Margot. I'm going to turn it back over to Tom to wrap this up because we are over so much, but I'm just going to say thank you to everybody who has for those extra 15 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you to the 38 people that hung in there over time. We really appreciate the partners providing updates and sharing with us all the great things they're doing. That's something that's always been part of our partnership meetings and something that we certainly want to continue in the future. So thank you all. I'd like to thank all our speakers today. I think we had a really great meeting. And I don't want to belabor and keep anybody any longer. I'll just say on behalf of our co-chairs, Tony, Tim, and Ed, we're very happy that you all joined us today. And if our co-chairs have one last comment they'd like to share, or if not, we can finish the meeting here.
Thank you. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Good job, Tom.